Hello everyone. In this video I'll be creating a basic HTML form. To begin, I'm in Visual Studio 2008 and I have a standalone local web application created. So I'm going to click on the line representing my website in the Solution Explorer, and now I'll right click and choose Add New Item. I'm going to add an HTML file to my application. So in the list of installed templates I choose HTML page, and I'll call this form submit HTML, and it gives us our basic HTML template. So form itself is an HTML tag, and what I'm going to do now is define this as form, and I'm going to give it an ID. An ID makes this form available to JavaScript, so I'll call this form FRM name. As you'll see, we're going to work with a first and last name data entry field in a few minutes. Now, a very important attribute for a form element is method. Method can be used, as you can see in my autocomplete, for get or post. So, if we were to use a get method, what happens is we are going to transmit our form variables to the server in the URL itself. And the URL will take the form, like for example, let's say the page is called default.aspx. Now I'm not actually entering this in my page, I'm using this as a scratch pad to show you the format. Then variables will be listed after the file name, beginning with a question mark. After the question mark, the variables will be listed. So for example, first name equals Bob, and then you'd want an ampersand sign, and last name equals Smith. That string represents a GET request. Now, a POST request is totally different. With a POST request, the form data is actually encoded in the request message that goes across HTTP to the web server, and that has many more capabilities than a simple GET request. So once we've decided on the method that we're going to use, we need an action. Action determines what happens when this form is submitted, where the form data is sent. We don't have a page defined yet in our solution that would handle this data. So for the purposes of this example, I'm simply going to leave that blank. Now within the form itself, what we need is a place where we can enter our data. You can use regular HTML markup within the form, but you can also use special tags which are intended for data entry. One of those tags is the input tag. Now, input is itself a master tag that has many forms. As you can see here, it can be a button, a checkbox, or any of these other types. So we're going to make this an input type of text, which makes a text field. And we're going to have to give it a name attribute. Without the name, the data can't be sent to a server. The name becomes combined with the actual information entered by the user to form what's called a name-value pair. And the web server can retrieve all the name-value pairs for a form. So we're going to call this first name. And I'm going to put quotes around the attribute values. It's not mandatory, but it's a best practice so that the application will work in multiple browsers. So we can also set a max length for a text field. I'm going to set it to 30. The next field that we want is another text field, this time called last name. And in this case, I'll set the max length to 50. Now, we're not going to get very far with just these fields. If I go to Design View, it's hard to tell even what's happening because you just see fields side by side each other. So I'm going to use P elements to indicate a paragraph area, and I'm going to put each of these fields within a P element. I now have the beginnings of a basic form, so when I go back to my design mode, you can at least see that the fields are on their own lines. So the next thing I'm going to do is add one more line here, and I'll just call this, make this an H1 or heading element, and call it enter your name. Now, the one thing that you'll see with an H1 element without styling applied is how large it looks, but it's certainly serving our purposes for now. So the next thing I'll do is give labels to each of these fields. So I'll use B or for bold, an element, and just type first name. and then down below I'll also put B for bold, and type last name. And in Design View you can see our form starting to take shape. Now the last element that I'm going to add with another P element is an input type of submit. This actually will draw a specialized button that, when clicked, will automatically submit this form to the server whether or not the data in the form is what I desire. I have to actually use JavaScript to validate the data to either cancel the submit or to allow it to go forward. So the next property that I'm going to set is actually value. Value will provide a label for my button. So I'm going to call it submit your name. And now when I design my form, you can see that I have my two fields and I have a button. So I'm going to save my form, and I'm going to right-click and choose View in Browser. It just started the local Cassini web server on my desktop computer, and you can now see our basic form. So I'm going to type a name and click Submit. Now when I do this, the page will produce an error because there is no destination set. It's trying to submit to itself because